Hi, welcome back to Community Leaders, Episode 4. I'm your host, Todd Welsh, and yesterday I had the opportunity to visit with Travis Young with Salina Vortex Corporation, and not only is he leading over 400 employees as the CEO of Salina Vortex, he also is making the art movement downtown that you've seen with the silos. He actually is going to talk to you on how that became a part of Salina, Kansas, and how he says it's kind of the Eiffel Tower. So we're going to jump right in and we'll talk to Travis Young and see how he's making Salina a little bit better as a community leader. All right, so we're in with community leaders. Travis Young, join us today in the hot seat. Welcome, Travis.
Thank you for having me, Todd.
Yeah. 30 seconds. Tell me a little bit about yourself, your family, and how you got to Salina.
Sure. Actually, I was born here, Asbury Hospital, back before it was Salina Regional. Lived here until I was about 6 or 7. Then my dad got a job with the hospitals up in Topeka. And so my youth was spent in Topeka, came back because Dad returned to Vortex because my grandfather was retiring, wanted to retire. And so we came back in 1989, I think it was, and went to Southeast Salina High School, graduated from there, got a business degree at K-State, and after that, I kind of left Salina, where I left the state, actually. I spent a year overseas. I bought a one-way ticket to London.
Really?
And I had some money. I sold everything that I owned, and bought a one-way ticket to London. I was in London for 2 days, and I realized London's way too expensive for my budget. So
let's backtrack here a little bit, though. What makes a guy from Salina, Kansas buy a one-way? Did you have a job lined up there, or that's just where you wanted to go, or what?
No, I wanted to. So my business degree was an international business degree,
Okay.
and I always had a wanderlust for the world, and I wanted to see the world, and it was basically everything I owned was in a backpack. Had a little bit of money from my great grandmother who put some money in an account, an IRA of some sort,
Right.
and she had taken that out and basically in her will gave it to me, and I had a little bit. It wasn't a lot. She went through the Great Depression, right? So had that, sold a truck I had, sold all my stuff from college, and my goal was I'm going to go as long as I possibly can. So London was too expensive, so I immediately went to Eastern Europe.
Okay. So how old
Yeah.
are you at this point doing that?
I was 23.
23. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. 23. Now we're in Eastern Europe.
I'm in Eastern Europe, Czech Republic, Poland. We went to Hungary. But back in those days, you could buy a meal for 50 cents.
Wow.
In a restaurant. And beer, I think a big thing of beer was 25 cents.
Wow.
So your money went a long way. Ended up getting a job through a friend in Portugal. So I worked on a farm for a while. I was a bartender, did odd jobs for people, went up, had some friends who were foreign exchange students at Southeast Salina. So in between that, I was seeing them. Eventually, the summer was over. I was doing good with the money, and I decided to work my way to Greece. And so it was off-season in Greece, and this was before the euro. So everybody thinks Greece is super expensive. It is today.
Right.
But back in those days, it was super cheap. I could stay somewhere for $3 a night.
So you're kind of like a gypsy when you're.
I was a hobo. Maybe that's a better description.
Yeah.
I rode trains sometimes. But,
Really?
But though back then they had the Euro Pass, so for $500 or roughly.
So I'm picturing you with the stick on your shoulder with a knapsack and everything you own.
There wasn't a knapsack. It was just a big backpack.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, with all of that. You had to be a catch. You met your wife overseas. Is that correct? I can't think of a better looking guy who's a hobo traveling around with a knapsack and a little bit of money to buy beer and beans,
Right.
and to attract the woman that you attracted. So where did you meet Melanie?
Oh,
correct?
Melanie. Yeah, I met her in Santorini, Greece. She was working in London, actually, and she finished her job in London. And her cousin told her, "Hey, you need to go to this place called Santorini, and it's the off season in Greece that part of the year, so it's not really hot. It's actually sometimes cold."
Right.
And so, wow, that story's a pretty crazy story.
That's for another segment.
That's maybe for
just
another
stick with
segment,
Melanie.
yeah.
Now, the story I told you earlier, though, I was going to give a shout out to your wife because every time I see her out in the community, she's always laughing and smiling. She's extremely bubbly.
Yeah.
I don't know her at all. You know, I know she's married to you. But again, just being in that energy, and you get to live in it every day.
Yes,
now
lots
I'm
of
sure
energy.
You see a different side of her sometimes, okay? We won't go there either.
Don't get her mad.
Don't get her mad. But other than that, I mean, again, when I see her out in the community, she just is, a part of the community with somebody who is not from the United States, I'm assuming, correct?
Right. She's actually originally from Montreal, Canada.
From Canada.
Yeah.
Okay.
She's both of her parents are French, so French speaker.
Yeah. So to have that and then to come in Salina and make that her hometown and then really just embrace it. So I want to give kudos to her because I do notice that when I'm out and about that she really feels at home here and she makes it her home. And again, one thing I see her always smiling.
Yeah, and this is kind of her second tour of duty in Salina. We lived here, I believe, from 2001 till 2003.
Okay.
So she had a understanding so there's a story there. We were only in Salina for maybe 2 or 3 years, and then once I got the job at Salina or at Vortex, basically I worked at Vortex for a short amount of time, and then we moved to the UK to start our operations in Europe.
Yeah. And that's what I was talking about earlier of how usually in my segments I like, okay, how do I know you and when did Travis become into my radar as a community leader? And we were talking earlier and I was thinking that I knew you were from here because I knew your father and
Right.
then you had moved away. And all I'd heard about was he had a son that was overseas and had started a certain division for Vortex. And again, I didn't even know what Vortex did. I don't know anything about it. But that's all I knew about you is he had a son named Travis over trying to get
Right.
that operation started. And then I heard when you moved back to Salina, and I'm assuming then you came back in that role and you went out you had the new plant built by then, right? Out the new facility when you came back?
Yeah, that we had finished that in 2007. I think Melanie and I left in 2008.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you came back and were working there. And then in the last couple of years, again, only in my eyes, doesn't mean you weren't doing stuff before this,
Right.
but in my eyes, I started to see you surface at community events. I started you to take a huge role in our community as the chamber, you called it earlier.
The chair.
The
Yeah.
chair of the chamber. So you're the past chair of the chamber, which is a big role to step up in.
It is.
And take that on, especially being how busy you are running Vortex, and you guys are all over the place. So to have that role, and then the arts, we just
Right.
talked about everything. We'll pick back up on the arts of everything that is being built from the silo to all of the art that's down. That's all downtown. So you orchestrate all that, which we'll talk about. And then the one that I love the best is this one right here. Okay, so this is how I really know him. I'm going to wear the cap for the rest of the interview, and it's the Salina Blue Cats.
That's right. That's right.
And you were the guy and I took it hook, line, and sinker. Okay, I was the biggest guy, and we'll tell that story real quick, and then we'll segue into Vortex because I want to know your philosophy on that. But this is how I really got to know you, okay? And this is not a good start for me to get to know you because you really duped me pretty good, okay?
I think a lot of people were duped.
Yeah, so I wake up on Facebook one morning, and I see that we're getting a semi-pro baseball team.
Yeah.
And there's a stadium being built, and tickets are for sale, hats and merchandise are for sale. It's like full-blown semi-pro baseball coming to Salina.
Yeah, and the basically the schedule set up. We had Ja Rule doing a concert after the
and the
initial
stadium,
game.
like you were breaking ground on Wednesday of the new
That's
20,000 seat stadium. It was gonna be like $40 million. And I'm telling you, I had my credit card out, like I'm ready to buy tickets for SalinaHomes.com. We were gonna have box seats. I'm like, I could put this is gonna be amazing. Only to find out it was what?
An April Fool's joke.
An April Fool's joke.
Yes.
Now the last thing I'll say, and then I want to know where that came from.
Sure.
The city manager and the mayor were taking so many phone calls to try and figure out what was going on. Like the mayor was yelling at the city manager going, how can you not tell me? How could you keep this a secret that this was really going on? We don't know anything about this. And so the city manager said they had to make phone calls and you tell me the story.
The city manager actually called my dad and my dad goes, what day is it?
But your marketing department did all that.
Yeah, we did. So we have a tradition there in our marketing department to do April Fool's jokes. It helps them just redirect some creative energy to do something else other than sort of market our products. So we kind of did this every year, and it was mainly to our industry, not necessarily to the community. And that year we thought, what can we do to fool everybody using social media to do this April Fool's thing? And that's what we came up with was inventing this false baseball team.
Dude, it looks better. Like the marketing that went into that is way better than 90% of the semi-pro franchises that would take place. I mean, it was legit. Until you really started to look at the stuff. I mean, like the phone number was 865-309 or something like that.
867-5309.
Yeah.
Call Jenny.
Call Jenny. Yeah, Jenny.
And so people were actually posting on our Facebook page. They're like, I'm trying to call the number, but it's not going through.
It was probably me. I don't. You know how they say how can you get scammed by people wanting you to go down and pay the sheriff's calling you need to go down and buy Best Buy gift cards.
Right.
Who in the hell would do that? Well, who would call 865-309 and ask for Jenny? Me.
Right.
I'm
right.
like,
well, they did a great job.
It was
of
fascinating.
Putting that together.
Anyway, so that's how you became on my radar a lot.
Right.
And then I saw you evolve from there. And man, you're just doing really good stuff in the community. Before we talk about Vortex again, let's go back to the community. And I want to talk about the silo and how that came about. Because what most people don't know in our community is it's the most photographed building right now in Salina. Tell me how that whole project came about of the painting of silo down on North Santa Fe.
Yeah, so in 2017, we were still living in England, and some friends of ours had a gallery that focused on street art. So we were at this reception, and I was explaining we're moving to Salina, Kansas, and all of this. There's a lot of grain silos. It would be cool if somebody could paint that. And my friend said, you need to call this guy, Guido Van Helden. And I was like, okay, I'm going to keep that in mind. So fast forward, when they started renovating everything downtown, I thought, maybe now it's time to call Guido Van Helden, because I wasn't going to have something down there and it just wasn't activated downtown. I mean, before that, it was kind of tumbleweeds.
Right.
Really. It was kind of a weird thing to be in that place. So with all that, we were like, okay, now's the time. So I had his phone number from
all those years.
Yeah, and so I called him. He answered, which I was surprised. And I said, hey, we've got this thing here. And he goes, yeah, I want to go because I haven't done one in Kansas, and I only want to kind of do one in each state. And so he came down 2 weeks later after that phone call, and then there he was.
Yeah.
He said, yeah, I'll do it. And so really why is that? It's not just because we wanted some art on a silo. I realized that we didn't really have an Eiffel Tower. Salina didn't have this real destination point at that point in time. The Stiefel's great. I love the Stiefel. Wonderful, wonderful venue. But it's an event. It doesn't happen all the time. And we needed something that people would go off the interstate to go see. And that's really what it was what's our Eiffel Tower?
Yeah.
And to be honest, we already had the building, so there's no need to build anything. It was just painted.
Very well done. Yeah. Again, it is. You see people taking pictures in front of it all the time.
Oh, yeah. It's photographed a lot.
Do you know what, and I probably could have researched this before, and I'm sure it's out there, why the children in the merry-go-round? Did he tell you how he came up with that?
Yeah, so he actually called myself in, as well as Eric Montoy, who is our marketing director, because he was struggling with what to do. So his process is to go into the community and take photos of people, all kinds of things. So his focus is people. So he took all these photographs along with Tanner Colvin, kind of took him around. He's our videographer at Vortex. And so we worked with him, and he was putting things together and called us in. He said, I'm thinking about doing this. And we were like, where'd you get these photos? And it was a group of kids that were organized through a church here in town. They had I don't know, I wasn't there, so right. I wasn't really sure what it was all about, but he showed me these photos of these kids doing this ring around Rosie. He goes, I want to do something with this. I want to do 360 all the way around that silo. And we were like, yeah, that's great. So the photos are actually kids from here.
Cool.
And the state. So
yeah, it turned out great. Yeah. And then you went from the silo, which is the Eiffel Tower now.
Right.
And then you said, let's take it further. And then again, what I want people is I want to give you the recognition, and I'm sure you had some people along with you in there, but the art that we're starting to see being painted next to the prickly pear and down I call it the art alley behind the Stiefel and all the way around there. Tell me about how that's coming together.
Well, after we got done with the Guido's work, Eric, Tanner, and I were like, well, what else do we do? Do we do more? There's a lot of walls. And we were like, okay, yeah, let's try to get. So I start calling artists, and they're not responding to me. It was like, well, this isn't as easy as I thought it would be. And eventually I got a hold of an artist out of New Jersey, Joe Ratu. I've seen his work before in different places in Miami, and I was impressed with it. And I thought, yeah, maybe this guy will do it. And he responded. We ended up with a call, and he was skeptical. And I called him back, and I said, listen, Joe, I'll buy your plane ticket. Just come here and have a look. And so he spent a day here looking around downtown. And he said, yeah, what you guys need to do is put on a festival. He said, I've never seen a place like this where it's completely untouched. They're used to working in urban centers where there's kind of a graffiti culture and that sort of thing that goes on. And he's like, this is unbelievable. It's like a blank canvas. He goes, I think I can get artists to come here for a festival. So we're like, okay. So we worked with them, and we gave him a list of artists that we really liked. And next thing you know, he's calling them, and they're going, yeah, I'll do it. Wow. I'll do it. And so we raised the money to bring all the artists in. It's not free. And lo and behold, at the beginning of October of last year, we had all these artists here. And, I'm not necessarily I'm not really into the scene too much, but we were kind of giddy, like school children, looking at these.
Well, you pulled it off
because it's crazy artists from all around the world. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it is like, I just looked at some of those, and there's a little boy, I think, with a guitar by one of the studios.
Yeah, it's a little girl, actually.
It's a little girl.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I was just like, that's amazing. Not only the art of it, but the placement of where it goes, how tall to make it, how detailed to make it. and it really just kind of fits in. What's the future of? Will we see more of that? Is this like a committee you have? Is this growing? Will we have another art festival, or what do you got going?
That's
there?
the plan. So next October 5th through the 7th is when we're going to have Boom 2. So it's Boom Salina #2, and we already have artists committed. Some of them are from Portugal. We have some from France, here in the United States as well.
Wow.
Because our goal there, and I sometimes get, well, why don't we have more local artists? And I appreciate local artists very much. And we've actually had some of their work included into it. Now, that Artwork Alley, that's more local or regional artists. But what we wanted is the best in the world. So we have pretty lofty goals. If we can continue to get the funding to do this,
right.
Which is mainly from private funding, we want to be the best outdoor public art museum in the world.
Nice.
I didn't say Kansas.
Yeah, in the world.
And that means we have to get people who are on this level.
Yeah.
That is just unbelievable, because it is something that you go and you go, wow. Because I'm not an artsy guy too much, but street art and murals are one of those things that you look at and you go, how did they do it?
Yeah.
It is almost like a Ripley's Believe It or Not, to somebody who doesn't frequent a lot of art galleries.
Yeah. I just got this vision of 25 years from now.
Right.
People are going to, this may be a destination. If one of those particular artists that you commission to come down here and they go, well, if you like that, you should see the art piece he did in the alley in Salina, Kansas.
Yeah.
And people would actually travel here to see it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where they could see that. And I know when they opened up where Sharp Performance is now, where the old furniture is, if you want Sharp Performance, there's some old paintings of the Coca-Cola signs that were on the exterior of buildings.
Right.
And they saved those. And then I know there's one down on the corner of Land Title on 7th Street that when they took the facade off the side of that to expose the brick, there was an old painting there,
right.
and it looks amazing. And so I see that happening in 50 years in Salina, people wanting to know the story of how that came about and who those artists were. And then I'm learning something now. I really thought they were Kansas artists. I didn't know they were coming here from the world.
So this last year we had Switzerland, France, the Netherlands, Finland, New York, New Jersey was represented in that group.
Wow.
And we had some local artists do some pieces as well, just to join in the fun. So
cool.
It was good.
Let's segue out of, obviously, I appreciate you doing what you do in the community. Yeah. My family lives here. Everybody who's listening to this on the podcast, I think I wanted them, that's really why I wanted to give you the recognition for what you're doing. Number one, taking care of the chamber, moving that in the right direction. Number two, the artwork stuff that's going on. Three, the humor side of you with the Blue Cats and the baseball team of getting that done. And there's a whole nother segment, we're not gonna have time for it, but is the marathon stuff that you're working on, that you're bringing to Salina, Kansas. And in 15 seconds, tell me about that, because that's gonna be a big deal.
Well, I can't take credit for that. Daniel and Chris really spearheaded that. We helped support it. We helped make the medals. We help with some of the marketing, but I can't take credit for that
Okay.
Crossroads Marathon. That takes a big group of people,
Yeah.
because the logistics of that is huge.
And how many people did you have come to Salina this year? How many people ran it?
There was over 800 runners.
800 runners,
And
first year,
which is pretty phenomenal. So right now we have 800 signed up, and they're not starting the gun until November.
Yeah. But is it still a Boston qualifier?
It is a Boston qualifier.
Boston
still.
Marathon qualifier
Yeah.
in Salina, Kansas.
And we get a lot of people from out of state.
Yeah.
It is definitely a national presence that's going to come to Salina. And as this thing grows, I hope they triple what they did last year, maybe quadruple. So that's a huge economic impact because we get a lot of people. That's overnight stays, at least one night, likely 2 nights. So it's a big deal.
Let's segue into the Vortex as a part of our community.
Yeah.
We were talking earlier, and I'm like, I know this much about what Vortex does. I know what they do for our community, but what do you guys actually? It's like Area 51 out there. Okay, like you bust people in.
Right.
You guys are manufacturing something. Nobody knows what's going on, and then you bust people out. So tell me, what does Vortex do?
So a little bit of history there. My grandfather was a pneumatic conveying engineer. So pneumatic conveying is, think about how plumbing works, right? So you would need to get water from one place to the next in your house. It's the same way in a process facility with dry solids. So think of flour, right? Think of gyprock or sheetrock,
yeah.
right? So raw ingredients is gypsum powder, right? So you have to take, when you're making sheetrock, you have to make a lot of sheetrock, right? And so you have huge silos filled with gypsum powder, and you've got to get it from point A to point B. Well, you have to use pneumatic conveying, which is like pushing dry solids through a pipe.
Okay.
So you use positive air pressure, sometimes negative air pressure, depending on the type of material you're handling. And that's how you get things from one place to the next. But there also has to be a valve to shut off the silo. There has to be a diverter to switch it from one direction to the other. And for the most part, that's what my grandfather did. And my father and my grandfather started Vortex in 1977. And it was based on this pneumatic conveying system idea that my grandfather had. They tested it and trialed it, the prototype, for a while. And eventually my grandfather went to the wall and pulled the plug out of it. He said, it's not going to work. And we're in big trouble because we're in debt. And so they sulked for a few days, and then they looked at this valve that he had created, and they said, maybe there's something to that. And that's where it all started. So my father left. He was young at the time. He was not far out of college, and he felt like I need more experience doing other things. So my grandfather continued it until about 1989.
Is this all in Salina?
In Salina, all in Salina.
Where was so we know where the big plant is now. Where did your grandfather and your dad, where did they start? Where was
it was on
Vortex?
Arnold Avenue.
Okay.
So not far.
Okay.
It was still at the airport area, actually just off the runway. And so my dad came back in '89 and ran the company for about 15 years as CEO and president. And he applied marketing to the company. And I'm a marketer, he's a marketer. And that's when it really took off. And so he added on to that Arnold Avenue facility. Eventually we ran out of room. We were to the curbs. And so we bought the green space that off of Waterwell
and Centennial.
And Centennial.
Okay.
And we built that facility in 2007.
And a state-of-the-art facility. I mean, in 2007, I took a tour of that.
Yeah.
And it's impressive. I mean, I haven't been out there for years. I'm sure it's still impressive. But from the front offices to then the manufacturing area.
Yeah.
To then you have like a little display of all your valves and how it works and all. I'm assuming you still have that little room?
It's still there, yeah.
Okay. So there's a little room there that I took a tour on, and just to know what you guys were, probably a chamber after hours or something that was held out there.
I remember that.
And I went out there to see, because again, it was like Area 51. What are you guys doing out here? What are all these people coming and going for?
Yeah, we don't have a lot of customers in Salina.
Yeah.
And it's not a sexy product for a consumer, right? Yeah. So we don't make pizza and
how many employees out there?
We have in total worldwide 430.
Okay.
And about 400 or so are based here in Saline County.
Yeah.
And we have 3 facilities now. We have we made some acquisitions over the years. We purchased Casa Fab in 2018, and so on Avenue B, we have operations there. We also purchased what was the old ADM Econoflow factory, and we've refurbed that, and we're operating a subsidiary out of that operation. Wow. It opens up this year, actually.
Wow. And then, so out of your 4 employees, so let's think about the manufacturing side. Who works out in that I mean, like, there's guys, are they welding and putting all these pieces together, like for the valves? Is that mostly what out in that manufacturer is?
we have, it's a part of many things that we do out there. We have lasers, so big flatbed lasers, as well as tube lasers, press braking, those parts. And then at that point, it kind of goes into welding. Yeah. And so we have TIG welding, MIG welding, and what we call heavy MIG welding, which is the gigantic stuff we build. There's valves bigger than this room that we make.
See, and I'd heard you still is craft still a did somebody tell me when you were building, like, that's how you build for cheese or Kraft macaroni? I don't even know that that's true. That's
we build valves to make anything. So,
I mean, see what I resonate with? Kraft, like, you got a multi-billion-dollar business. I'm just like, what are you doing? They're like, well, let's dumb it down for you, Todd. Do you eat macaroni and cheese? Yeah, we move the cheese. The little powder that's in the pack, we move that for you.
You think about it, pet food, for example. We handle most of the pet food in not just here in the United States, but many parts of the world. Pet food has anywhere from 20, 30, 40, 50 dry ingredients, different ingredients that go into it. So you have the vitamins, you have the minerals, you have blood meal, you have different proteins, you have grains. I mean, it all was separated at some point in time, and then it has to come together, right? So people don't see that they don't realize how much goes into some of the food. And also, you think about chemicals. How does your dashboard in your car, where'd that come from? If you have a synthetic clothing, it was a petrochemical at one point in time. So we handle all of that petrochemical resin, and the resin turns into pellets, and the pellets turn into something that's molded. So it's all behind everything you do every day. So coffee, you drink Starbucks, you have Black Rifle coffee, Folgers,
it all has
whatever.
To be moved through somewhere.
And that's our customers.
Yeah.
So, I think we take a lot of pride with our team throughout Vortex is how much we impact the world, right? It's not just, I think of it, we support all these families that work for us. But you think about, we're also feeding the world. We're also helping making products better. Yeah. And whether you're driving, your tires, carbon black, dry powder, right? Yeah. So, I mean, everything that we do touches everybody in the world. I mean, we indirectly impact billions of people.
So that's what Vortex does. And I'm sitting here in awe. I'm telling you, I don't know if it's more in awe of that. That's what Vortex has become, from your grandfather that's there. But in just looking at you, again, seeing you in the community, knowing everything you're doing for the community, and then knowing you're in charge of 400 and something employees and making sure that that the company's profitable. So let's go inside the business side of you real quick. So you said you're kind of a marketing person, but there's also got to be a business mindset that you have. But what I'm most specifically on for the listeners here, and even for my personal stuff, is how do you keep the culture of a company that has 3-4 different locations all over the United States and worldwide? What's the word culture mean for you and your company, and how are you guys making sure that the workers stay there, and what are you providing for them?
Oh, I think that comes from many things, right? So we have a set of core values, right? We put them on the wall, but we don't just put those core values on the wall. We live by it. And actually, we hire by it. So we're looking for core values. We're not necessarily looking for skills, right? If you have the core values, we'll find a place. It can work out. So it starts with the core values. And I credit Jeff Thompson for bringing that concept to Vortex, because that's kind of a Coke Industries where he used to work. That's a philosophy that they work with. So the values were already there. But there's other things that you have to work on, right? Leadership is one of the big things. So if, they all say it, people don't leave a company, they leave a manager, right? So you have to really make sure your leadership are the right people. And that doesn't matter from the top all the way down. And not just leadership, but I mean servant leadership. Really, that's one of our core success initiatives is this servant leadership idea. It's not about you as a leader. It's about who you're leading. So putting people first is a real important part of the culture. So that's kind of how we create this team environment, if you will. And people don't feel like they can't speak, they can't have an opinion, they can't provide, some ideas. We don't try to suppress that.
From a scale of 10 on micromanagement, if you think of Vortex, 1 being we don't micromanage at all, 10, like if we went out and surveyed 10 of your employees, what do you think Vortex and your leadership style would rate in between there of micromanagement?
I would hope we are very zero micromanagement. I would hope. I would hope. That's kind of the goal.
And that's my goal.
Empowerment. Empowerment is nobody wants to come to work stressed out about, their manager on their back all the time. They don't perform well.
Yeah.
And they if they don't feel empowered, they're not gonna like it.
Yeah. And I like that leadership quality because that's a little bit how I run my company. Like, I don't need to know what you're doing on a daily basis. I'll know if you're not performing. It'll show up in your work.
Yeah.
Like, I don't need to watch you. Now it may take 6 weeks for it to show up, but it's going to show up eventually, whether the paperwork gets this tall, whether the work doesn't get done, whether the numbers aren't right, whether somehow your productivity is going to show up in there that just isn't matching. And then you have to take steps on there because you got other people to answer to, to kind of make that happen. But I just wanted to figure out some of the people that we bring on for community leaders. There's the leadership role that's there, but I also want to get in the mindset of them as a leader and how they would run their company because it's pretty impressive of what you're doing out there.
Oh, I may be the CEO, but I am the CDO. I'm the Chief Delegation Officer.
Nice.
I try to keep my eyes on the big picture, and you try to find the right people to empower to execute things. I'm a jack of all trade, master of nothing. So I can do a lot of stuff, but I'm pretty mediocre. Right? I love marketing. I love the ideation and how that works. I love playing the guitar, but I'm pretty mediocre, to be honest.
Yeah.
And it's finding people with the strengths in the right places and getting them engaged because they're better than me at it.
But that is a skill set in itself. To recognize talent, put them in the right places, and then get them in a job, and then make them see the end result.
Yeah.
And make sure that the project happens. I mean, somebody's got to do that. Like, somebody's got to weld it, somebody's got to put it together, somebody's got to market it, and then somebody has to make sure that all of those pieces come together. Because I think you said it down there.
That's right.
You start down here with a product in mind, and then you've got to see the finished product. Well, the guy who's welding it probably never, ever sees it go out onto the truck or get assembled in the plant. Like he's got a piece there, but you have to see that all the way through. And that's a skill set that needs to be done. You didn't build it, but your skill set was, how do I take it from vision to it actually getting put inside the plant and making sure that it works?
And I think a challenge in leadership roles like us, this world changes so fast and dynamics change quickly. People dynamics, economic dynamics, and you've got to be on the ball. You got to be looking at the windshield, right?
Yeah.
Seeing what's coming down the road. And I feel like that's probably more my role than anything else after being a leader or a servant leader to people. Wow. And it's also personal, right? I mean, people want a friendly environment. People want to feel like there's not this hierarchy that they can't break through. and I think that's important.
Well, you guys are doing impressive stuff. Again, it makes me even more aware of what you're doing out there. Let's go back to you personally.
Okay.
What's in store for Travis in the next 5 years?
That's a good question.
Yeah, I'm going to throw that one in there. What's something about you that you go, you know what? In 5 years, I could see myself doing this. Whether it's personal, professional, whatever. What's something on the bucket list that I'd know you better about?
Right. Well, I've traveled a lot throughout the world, but there's places I still want to go. So I do want to get some things off my bucket list. I want to go to Patagonia. I want to go to Antarctica.
I've never been there, but I've got a vest that says Patagonia on it. So
actually,
you got it right there.
There's mine.
Like I would have thought you would have been there already.
Yeah,
like you've got the shirt to show it.
I like the outdoors. I like trekking. In fact, next weekend, 2 other guys and I are going to go on a 3-day overnight hike in the Ouachita Mountains in Arkansas. So just pack everything in, your food, your shelter, and
wow.
It's called Eagle Rock Loop. It's a pretty cool place, 27 miles.
So you're an adventurer. I mean,
I love
heart,
adventure.
You're an adventurer.
I'd like to do more adventuring. Yeah, I think. I mean, obviously, you've got the company to look after, but wanderlust. The COVID has created even more wanderlust in my mind, and so I'm like, oh yeah, I want to go do these things, right? Life is short, right?
Yeah.
And you have to chase some of those passions.
All right, we got to wrap it up. I said that this was going to be 28 minutes to 30 minutes, so I don't even know what time frame we're on.
You're holding yourself accountable.
I am. I hold myself accountable. So to wrap this up, though, same questions I ask everybody,
okay.
and I prompted you a little bit on this one.
Yeah.
If you had 24 hours left to live, doctor came to you and said you have 24 hours, got to stay in Salina, can't leave. Right. What would be your next 3 meals? Can't eat at home, even though Melanie's probably a phenomenal cook. In Salina, Kansas, think of the next 3 places you would have a meal, and what would you eat when you go there?
Okay.
Breakfast.
I'm not a big breakfast guy. I just never have been.
Yeah.
Real simple. Like I eat fruit in the morning,
okay.
and that's kind of it. So
you got 24 hours. You don't want to go have pancakes or something. Just eat.
Don't have a big sweet tooth either. For breakfast, we just rarely go to breakfast.
So you go to Dillon's, buy some fruit, cut it up.
I cut it up.
Eat it in the car.
I love fruit. Yeah.
Good.
Dillon's then.
Dillon's.
Yeah.
You'd be a first for Dillon's for breakfast on the show. All right, what about lunch? Where's your favorite place to go eat lunch? Or even if somebody was going to come to town that you dine, take out on there. But where would you go?
I tell you what, there's, I wouldn't have said this maybe 5 years ago, but there's so many great places to go nowadays here in Salina. I love sushi and Japanese type food. So whether it's lunch or dinner, I'd have to hit one of those. So Barolo, definitely they're open for dinner now. So I like their sushi.
Okay.
Love their sushi quite a lot. I can't believe I can get sushi that good here in the middle of Kansas. Koi ramen actually makes some interesting foods. It's really good. That ramen bowl is a little bit too much for me to eat.
So let's say that for lunch.
Yeah, those are lunch.
Some sort of sushi somewhere. So Barolo Grill for lunch.
Yeah.
And then dinner. Where would be your last meal?
God, that's a hard one. Because I like Scheme Pizza, right?
Yeah.
I like Yaya's. Even the Jamaican's really good too. Blue Sky makes good stuff too. I'd probably, because I don't always go to the Scheme Pizza. I usually that's like a special moment. I'd probably go have my last Scheme Pizza.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. That's mine too.
Yeah.
So that's mine. The Buffalo Scheme Pizza is how I'm going out.
Yeah. I think that's what I would do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. What's the Dream Pizza?
Yeah. The Dream.
Yeah. Yeah. I'd do Scheme.
All right. Well, because I'm going out. If you see me eating pancakes and then at La Casita
for
the Anthony Special and then the Big Scheme Pizza, you know I've been given some bad news.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
That's going to be. And if you see me eating those 3 places and I wasn't given bad news, I will the next time I go get my cholesterol checked probably.
No joke. That's why it's special.
Yeah. Travis, man, it's been a pleasure. Community leader. I mean, you really do stand out. I want to say thank you. Another question is, who do you know, who do you value in our community that you would like me to reach out to and you go, you know what, I like what they're doing and I want to know their story more. Does anybody come to mind?
Gosh, there's so many great people in this community. I'm like you. There's so many hidden stories out there. One person I've gotten to know pretty well through the chamber is Dr. Starkey. She's a phenomenal person. Really interesting. She's very smart, and I like her approach to leadership and how she has to deal with a lot of stuff at K-State Salina. It's
nice.
It's
See, that's somebody I don't even know. So now I'm more intrigued.
Yeah.
And I want to get more females on here too, of community leaders for females. So Dr. Starkey, and she's at what, K-State Salina?
K-State Salina, yeah. Okay.
I'm going to put a phone call out to her and put a little bug in there. And can I use your name?
Yeah, you can. She'll probably curse me out next time I see her.
It's all right. It's all right. That's how we make the community better. So,
all right.
Travis, thank you so much for coming on the show, and we appreciate everything you do in the community.
All right. Thank you.
You bet.